The store freezer door swung open, revealing a staircase that hadn't been there before. It was late, and the fluorescent lights buzzed unevenly above the aisles, their hum mingling with the low, steady vibration of the refrigerators. The convenience store smelled of cold metal, damp cardboard, and the faint tang of bleach from the mop bucket left in the corner. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. The night clerk station was empty, papers stacked neatly, a half-full coffee cup sitting forgotten under the harsh glare of the desk lamp. I had come for a bottle of water, something to break the monotony of a drive that had lasted too long. My boots squeaked softly against the tiled floor as I approached the freezer aisle. The doors were fogged with condensation, streaks running down like frozen tears. I reached for the handle of the far left freezer, a flickering overhead light casting a dull rectangle onto the floor. And then it moved. The door swung open without resistance, slow, deliberate, revealing darkness that shouldn't have been there. For a moment, I thought it was just my imagination, the reflective glass catching shadows from another angle. But what I saw wasn't a shelf of frozen goods. It was something else entirely. A staircase, narrow and concrete, descending into shadow. The cold air that rolled out was heavier than any freezer draft should have been, carrying a metallic tang that made my nose tingle. I blinked. The door hadn't swung closed, but the staircase hadn't been there before. I had walked these aisles dozens of times in the past month. The store was small and familiar. I knew every freezer, every shelf. This staircase defied memory, architecture, and reason. I took a cautious step forward. The floor beneath my boots felt ordinary, warm even, but the air spilling from the freezer was icy, biting at my cheeks. Each exhale fogged the space in front of me, the condensation hanging in the air like tiny suspended droplets. My fingers brushed the handle again. The metal was cold and damp. The door shifted slightly in my grip, the hum of the freezer deepening, resonant in a way that felt almost like a voice vibrating through the walls. I told myself it was a construction error, some maintenance issue, a hatch for deliveries I'd never noticed. Rationality was a thin veil over instinct. Something about the darkness beyond the door seemed wrong. It wasn't just absence of light, it was absence of reassurance, of scale, of anything familiar. I peered down. The stairs were narrow, steep, concrete slick with moisture, disappearing into blackness that didn't reflect the fluorescent glow above. Each step was sharp-edged, too regular, too deliberate. The angle of the descent looked impossible from the floor of the store, compressed, as if the staircase had been folded into existence just for me. A soft hiss accompanied the draft rising from below, like a gas leak, or perhaps the breath of something waiting. I stepped closer, the soles of my boots squeaking faintly on the tile. My reflection in the freezer glass fractured and wavered with the condensation, making me look older, thinner, strained in a way I didn't recognize. I swallowed. My fingers itched to touch something solid beyond the glass, to confirm reality, but the air from the stairwell pushed against me, resisting my intrusion. A metallic scent intensified, iron, rust, wet stone. It was inviting and repelling simultaneously, an impossible combination that made my stomach turn. The staircase wasn't visible in its entirety. Shadows pooled halfway down, swallowing each step in layers. Yet I could feel the space continuing below the floor of the store, stretching impossibly, as if the building itself had been lifted from one dimension and anchored in another. I tried to convince myself to leave, turn around, close the door, walk away. But curiosity pressed against the rational part of my mind, urging me to look further. I rested one hand on the top rail, slick with moisture, and leaned forward. The steps seemed to pulse beneath my gaze, faint vibrations that synchronized with the hum of the freezer. The condensation on the glass shifted subtly, droplets converging into thin streams that traced impossible angles, almost forming letters or shapes before scattering. The overhead fluorescent buzzed erratically, a stutter that made the air seem thicker, heavier, alive. I took a step forward, then another. The concrete beneath my boots was colder than it should have been, chilling my soles through thin socks. Each inhale carried the scent of stone, metal, and something else, damp, earthy, faintly sweet, like rot preserved in ice. The staircase narrowed, the walls pressing closer. I could feel the hum of the freezer door above me, vibrating through the railings, through the soles of my boots, through the small bones in my ears. It felt as if the store itself was aware, holding its breath, observing. I glanced up once. The fluorescent lights in the aisles above stuttered again, flickering shadows across the walls. I thought I saw a reflection, pale and distorted, in one of the glass doors. Not mine. Something taller, elongated, crouched just out of reach of recognition. I swallowed. My pulse spiked, chest tightening. Rational thought fought to reassert itself. The store had to be ordinary. No basement existed beneath this aisle. Fire codes, floor plans, surveillance, nothing could explain this. Yet the staircase went on, descending into blackness that thickened the deeper I moved. The sound of dripping water echoed faintly, though I couldn't see a ceiling or a pipe above. Each drop seemed deliberate, rhythmical, the echoes bouncing irregularly off unseen walls. The vibration through the metal railing intensified, harmonizing with the drop of water, until it became a low, resonant hum, almost voice-like. A whisper curled in the space behind me. Fleeting, nearly inaudible, just at the edge of hearing. Something shifting, something waiting. I hesitated mid-step. The freezer above me creaked faintly, the door swinging slightly as if nudged by an invisible hand. The condensation on the glass streamed downward, forming faint silhouettes that melted into nothing as my eyes traced them. A cold breeze washed against my cheek from below, carrying the scent of damp stone and something sharp, almost metallic. My teeth chattered involuntarily. I stepped down again. The stairwell grew colder, darker. The edges of each step were slick, the shadows pooling unnaturally. I became aware of sound or lack thereof. Footsteps in the store above me had stopped. The air was too still. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights seemed dampened, the store holding itself in tense anticipation. I could feel the space expanding beneath me. Each step revealed more darkness, more impossibility. The walls of the stairwell seemed to bend, angles shifting in ways my mind refused to register. I tried to focus on the concrete, on the rail beneath my fingers, the rhythm of my boots, but my gaze kept straying to the black ahead, drawn by something that shouldn't exist. A faint light appeared below, faint and flickering, like phosphorescence in damp stone, pulsed with every step I took. I couldn't tell if it was approaching me or I was approaching it. Shadows shifted in its glow, moving in the corners of my vision. I blinked. When I opened my eyes, they had reorganized, elongated, bent toward me. Something was there, something aware. I reached the last visible step. The hum of the freezer above became a distant echo, like sound traveling through water. The air smelled of iron and damp, sharper now, and the concrete was slicker, cold seeping through the soles of my boots. I leaned forward, peering into the darkness below, and felt a presence. Not a figure yet, not solid, but attentive. The blackness pulsed, waiting. A soft metallic scraping came from beneath me, echoing faintly, a rhythm matching the hum in the store. My stomach turned. The staircase continued beyond the reach of my eyes, folding into space that shouldn't exist. I reached the edge of visibility and paused. My reflection in the metal railing above me, flickering with the condensation, looked wrong, stretched, thinner, almost sentient. The freezer door above creaked again. I looked up. The light in the aisle flickered violently. In the brief glare, I thought I saw something at the top, tall, featureless, leaning just beyond the glass. Then the light blinked out, leaving only darkness and the faint, persistent hum from below. I wanted to go back, to climb, to leave the impossible staircase behind. But the space beneath me seemed to press against my attention, pulling, attentive, alive. My hand gripped the railing. The steps stretched downward infinitely. The air smelled colder, wetter, metallic. The darkness pulsed. And somewhere, at the top of the aisle, the freezer door swung slowly closed again. The hum ceased for a heartbeat. then resumed low, patient, and knowing. A customer walked in wearing the store's uniform and said, "Your shift is over. Come with me." The hum of the freezers filled the store, low and persistent, vibrating against the tile floor and through my boots. Fluorescent lights overhead flickered intermittently, bathing the aisles in uneven rectangles of cold, yellowed light. The late-night quiet stretched thin, as if sound itself had been drained from the building, leaving only the mechanical pulse of refrigeration and the occasional click of a faulty overhead sensor. I was alone, or I thought I was. I checked the clock above the checkout register. 2:42 a.m. My shift had started at 10, and I'd already been awake for 15 hours. Fatigue pressed against my eyelids, blurring the edges of the familiar aisles, softening the sharp corners of the shelves and the gleam of the candy wrappers. A bell jingled above the door. I barely noticed it at first. I was watching the reflection of the fluorescent lights on the polished linoleum, their distorted grid rippling across the counter. Then I heard it again, heavier this time, deliberate. Footsteps, slow, measured. I looked up. A man, or maybe a version of me, stood in the entrance. He wore the store uniform. Navy blue polo with the logo stitched neatly over the chest, name tag pinned just so. The fabric hung slightly off him, too crisp, too clean, as though it had never been worn before. The lighting caught the polyester sheen, making it look unreal, synthetic. His face, I froze. I had to blink twice, certain my mind was stretching memory to fill the space. He looked like me. Not entirely, but enough. Same height, same build, same set of tired eyes. Same thin line of exhaustion carved at the corners of his mouth. But there was something off. A subtle wrongness in the curve of his jaw, the angle of his shoulders. He wasn't me, but he could have been. "Your shift is over," he said. Voice even, flat, rehearsed like a recording played back through too many speakers. "Come with me." I swallowed. My mouth felt dry, thick. "Who, what?" He held up a hand, palm flat, then tilted it toward the back aisle. There was no urgency, no menace in his motion. Yet the store seemed to stiffen, to hold its breath. The fluorescent lights flickered again, a slow stutter, and I realized the freezer's hum had changed pitch. Slightly higher, thinner, like a strained note. The air smelled sharper, metallic, the smell of cold steel and ozone mixing with the faint lingering scent of bleach. I said, "Come with me," he repeated, calm and measured. I blinked. My eyes adjusted to the reflection on the polished tiles in front of me. I saw two of him. Three. The reflections rippled as if the linoleum were water. My own uniformed self dissolving and reappearing in strange angles. One reflected behind the counter, one by the snack aisle, one floating just outside the door. The sound of my heartbeat synced with the fluorescent flicker, slow at first, then too fast. I took a step back. The door behind him had shut itself silently, clicking closed as if it had never been open. The bell above it didn't ring. Shadows pressed into the corners of the store, stretching impossibly, folding along the edges of shelving, pooling at the base of the coolers. I could hear the faint scrape of shoes against tile in places where no one should be walking. "Your shift is over," the duplicate said again. And this time, I realized he wasn't looking at me, he was looking through me. His gaze was parallel, like a window reflecting the wrong version of the room. The air itself seemed to move with him, subtle currents carrying whispers too soft to catch. I stumbled toward the counter. The cash drawer clicked as I lifted it instinctively, checking for keys, coins, anything. Empty. The scanner beeped faintly, though nothing had passed beneath it. My reflection in the glass display case looked wrong. Eyes too large, shadowed lids, a faint double image behind each blink. I turned to run. The aisles stretched impossibly. Candy and chips I'd passed a dozen times in the last hour now loomed higher, shelves bending slightly, twisting, curving the wrong way. The fluorescent lights flickered, and each blink of light revealed another uniformed version of me. Standing in an aisle, leaning against a freezer, peering from behind a cardboard display. I stumbled into the back room, hoping for a mop closet, a stairwell, anything. The hum of refrigeration was louder there, almost oppressive. The walls appeared to lengthen, the tiles underfoot elongating, stretching. And then I noticed the time on the break room clock. 2:42 a.m. again. No movement, no forward progression. The second hand had stopped. A faint rattle came from the main floor. I could hear it clearly now. The soft, deliberate shuffle of feet across linoleum, the scrape of uniform fabric along metal shelving. A whisper. Your shift? Faint, layered, like dozens of voices speaking in the same monotone. The freezer doors rattled in resonance. I backed into the break room, hand on the wall. My reflection in the polished stainless steel of the fridge across from me split into two, then four, all moving independently of my motion. They smiled faintly, a twitch at the edge of recognition. The door to the main floor opened silently. It stepped in. One step, precise, measured, uniform perfect, eyes fixed on me. Behind him, the store stretched impossibly long. Aisles repeated endlessly, identical fixtures, shelves, freezers, logos. Each fluorescent light flickered in sequence, revealing more duplicates of me. Some leaning on counters, some standing at the registers, some crouched in the corner of the store, just out of focus. All silent, all patient. I stumbled backward, tripping over a mop bucket. The thud echoed unnaturally loud in the empty space, bouncing off surfaces that weren't there moments before. He or they approached, each step measured, inexorable. The uniform fabric smelled of detergent, sweat, ozone. Cold steel eyes met mine, and I felt something shift in my chest. Recognition, then replacement. You belong here, the uniformed version said, voice calm, final. Your shift is over. I tried to speak. My lips wouldn't move. My reflection in the glass-fronted freezer doubled, then quadrupled. Each reflection moved independently, taking steps closer, tilting heads in synchronous mimicry. My heartbeat synced with their motion, my own hands trembling as if I were no longer in control. The lights flickered again. A faint hum vibrated through the floor. The air pressed in, heavy, scented with the cold tang of refrigeration and something faintly human, metallic, decaying. I could feel the uniform closing around me, tight, as if drawn by unseen hands. I backed up against the wall. The main floor stretched wider. The aisles twisted impossibly. Freezers multiplied. Candy shelves duplicated themselves endlessly. The fluorescent flicker revealed each copy of me, each uniformed doppelganger. Their mouths closed, eyes blank, waiting. I stumbled toward the door. It swung open without resistance, and outside, the night was empty, silent. Yet the moment I looked back, the store behind me had grown taller, wider. The hum of freezers had deepened into a low, resonant vibration. The air smelled metallic, damp, familiar. One of the duplicates stood in the doorway, closer now, his eyes fixed on mine, and I felt the pulse of the building, the rhythm of the store itself, guiding him forward. You can leave, he said softly, but your shift will start again. I realized too late that I was already wearing the uniform. The name tag pressed against my chest, stiff and unfamiliar, but unmistakably mine. And the fluorescent lights flickered, endlessly, illuminating aisles that repeated forever, showing more copies of me, all patient, all silent, all waiting for the shift to begin.